Welcome to the Shock Your Potential podcast, where we focus on creating positive, productive, and profitable workplaces. I am your host, Michael Sherlock. I am a leadership and sales expert, best known for being serious about business, despite what you may think by my appearance of often very colorful hair and sometimes crazy shoes. My guests bring a wealth of information that will support your career and your business, along with many pearls of wisdom to support balance in your personal and professional lives. Listen in as I have another amazing conversation with a guest who will certainly shock your potential. So joining me today is Barbara Kaplan. She founded BSK Strategies, which is a business development consultancy, in 2005. Her practice focuses on two distinct areas. The first is personal branding, working with women to help them stand tall with a new level of confidence, take pride in and credit for what they do, and know that it adds value, and to help them realize the respect, reputation, recognition, and fulfillment they have earned and deserve for their distinctions and accomplishments. But I know we're definitely going to want to talk today with Barbara about a topic that is not only near and dear to her, but is really about, I think, our message and theme here, which is fire your inner critic and unleash the awesome you. So thank you for joining me today, my friend Barbara.
You're so welcome, and it is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. You are doing so many things, and I know it's been so fun to watch the evolution of your business and see you embrace this whole other arena dealing with women to help them unleash their inner awesomeness and fire that stupid inner critic. But I know that's just a little bit of what you do. And so we had some highlights. So, in your own words, tell us a little bit more about you, your business, and how you help your clients to shock their potential.
My company is BSK Strategies, and it is a business development consulting practice. I help clients across industries and businesses earn new and higher value work, establish thought leadership, and promote competitive advantage. What distinguishes me, and what I am told by my clients that distinguishes me, is my passion for helping them do four distinct things. Establish a strong personal brand, which Michael mentioned, feel so they can stand tall, find their own voice, and garner the respect, acknowledgement, fulfillment, dollars, and recognition that they have worked so hard to achieve and deserve. And if you can stand tall with confidence and ask for what you deserve, not what you want, but what you deserve, you will get it.
That's really true. What you deserve, not just what you want. And that's a really important distinction, because I know that women in particular, not just women, but women in particular, tend to struggle with this issue of really understanding what they are worth, which means what they deserve. So why is this such a passion project for you?
You know, for a long time, I've said the marketplace tells you who you are.
Mm-hmm.
If you are showing up in a way that is reinforced by what the marketplace is asking of you, what services it's asking of you, that's terrific. If it's not, then of course you have to tweak so that you show up differently. But several years ago, as I started to really network in depth with some incredible women's organizations, I was approached by women who said, I really want to work with you. And their situations were so similar. It was basically this. I work in a male-dominated industry. For example, one was a trader and she was the only woman at the desk. She came to that company with her boss, who basically said, I'll come if you take her. She'd been there for 7 years, but on his coattails. If his phone were ever to ring and a headhunter were to call, there she is, because she's only known as his person.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that distinguishes you? What is it that people can know they can come to you for, and that's a promise you will keep every time? What is it that you can do for the company, across the company, that is better for the general, that, you know, sort of feeds the general good? What are ways that, given the things that impassion you, you can stand out? For example, their women's initiative, or visiting other offices and teaching people at certain levels a new kind of skill. What are things that you can do that aren't already being done by somebody else that will get in front of management and establish your value in a material way because it will pay the company back. And
Mm.
typically women volunteer for a position like mentoring or running a special event, which are not visible roles. Men do not. They volunteer for roles that give them a seat at the table. Or as we often say, they don't have to bring their own chair. So the idea is that women are already distinguishing themselves and doing things that are different, doing things that really add value, doing things that other people aren't doing in whatever environment they're in. They're just not being recognized for it. And that's where the personal branding comes in. And a subset of personal branding is firing your inner critic. Because if there's a negative voice or a roadblock or an obstacle in your way, and you can't move forward freely, you can't stand tall with confidence. And if you can remove that obstacle, which is often that negative self-talk, you're unstoppable.
You know, I had somebody else this month that we were talking on a very similar line about the inner critic. And what she said just has stuck with me so much. She said, if you could ever tape what you say to yourself and play it out loud and you listen to it, you would be so shocked at how horrible the horrible things that we say to ourselves. And she was saying, you know, if you really would listen to it, you'd say, how could I tell those things to myself? I would never say such horrible or hurtful things to anyone else. Yet I
Oh,
have it
wow.
going on in my own head. And it is just like stuck with me because it's so true in those moments of doubt, those moments of self-criticism, the words, the phrases, the intensity of the emotion is so powerful. Why would we do that to ourselves when we'd never do that to anyone else?
Well, one of the things that I teach in this sort of vertical discipline is how to unravel your inner critic from you,
Mm.
because you are not your inner critic. How do you get her out of the passenger seat, out of the driver's seat? I'm very sorry. How do you get her out of the driver's seat and into the passenger seat? And one of the ways you do that is to give your inner critic a name. If
Oh.
you name her, you objectify her, and it's not so much in your DNA anymore. But to your point about the things people say, this is actually a flyer that I'm going to refer people to on the work I do with Inner Critic. I don't know if you can see these thought
Mhm.
bubbles on top, but let me read you a couple because they substantiate exactly what you just said, Michael. Negative self-talk. If someone tells you that what something you did is successful, you're apt to respond, "Oh, success is no big deal."
Mm.
If you walk into a room full of very knowledgeable, smart people, you might say to yourself, "I'm not worthy of being here. They just don't know it. I'm a fraud, but I'm not worthy
Mhm.
of being here. What if they find me out?" One
Mhm.
of the things that women often do, and men are starting to do more, this is pre-COVID, of course, is to spend a lot of money on their wardrobes, to often go in debt, just so that for every situation in which they put themselves, they look like they were born to be there.
Yeah.
But underneath that all, that's really like, they'll know I'm a fake. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
now $20,000 in debt, so I can look like how I think they look. And a lesson I want everybody to take away is do not judge your insides by somebody else's outsides.
So
Do
true.
not judge your insides by somebody else's outsides. A couple others of these. Oh, I'm just lucky. And you attribute your success to luck, not to something that you did. Or they're on to me. And I can tell you that these are true because in another presentation I did, the group of women who were, participants were asked to type into chat, what is the first thing that comes to their mind when they think of this negative self-talk, inner critic kind of stuff? And these thought bubbles apply in particular to something called imposter syndrome, that you
Mhm.
are showing up as an imposter of yourself. And many of these come from those conversations in chat or all the things
Mhm.
that we just say to ourselves. And so the gist of it is if you can name her and get her out of the driver's seat and into the passenger seat and distance yourself from her, that's a huge first step.
It's funny because as you were talking, a couple things popped into my mind. Number one is a lot of times when I'm talking to myself, not in a bad way, but when I'm, in this case, when I'm like, okay, when you realize something like, okay, why are you doing that? I call myself Sherlock, which is my last name. But when I start going, okay, Sherlock, do you really want to eat that piece of pie? Come on, Sherlock. You need to not stay up and watch this show. Go to bed so you can get a good night's sleep. When I call her Sherlock, when I call myself Sherlock, it's that reminder of, come on, it's like, what you need to be doing. So to do it. But I love the idea of giving her a different name when she's trying to creep in and make me doubt myself. I think that's really powerful. I'm not sure what I'm going to name her, but I think that's really powerful. But I wrote this down. But I also was thinking as you were talking, how many times I've really been working on this specifically, because many times somebody will say, I love your hair. Now, not everybody loves my hair. I get the funniest looks from
We
people
love your
sometimes.
hair.
Thank you. I love my hair. But I used to get when people would say, I love your hair. I'd say, oh, thank you. I know when I need to get it touched up or whatever. I'm like, why? They just told me
No, no,
they
no,
love
no,
it.
no, no, no.
I know. And so I've really been working on this lately. And probably for the last 3 or 4 weeks, every time somebody compliments me, I'm like, oh, thank you. And I play with it and smile and I go, oh, and I just take the compliment. Just take the compliment. Don't put a but after it.
Well, a lot of us, right, because but negates it.
But it's what I was realizing when I was talking about, when people are saying, hey, I love your hair. And then I wouldn't, I'd say, oh, thank you. But what I was really saying to them is, I don't believe you. I don't believe that you really like my hair, because I'm trying to give you a reason to say it's not okay. Instead of just stopping and saying, I'm going to embrace this compliment somebody gave me and thank them. And by thanking them, I'm also saying, I believe you. And
Exactly.
thank you.
I,
What a gift you gave me.
and as I have mentioned to you, I'm a bit older, so I grew up in a generation where women were very self-effacing.
Hmm.
And often, to your point about appearance, if I were with my mother and somebody said, I love your dress or your outfit looks really, my mother would always come back with, oh, this old thing,
Yes.
old thing.
Yes.
Never
Yes.
just a thank you, just take it in. And a lot of us were brought up feeling, knowing, intuiting anyway, that that's how
Hmm.
we were supposed to be. So it's a real
Yes.
unlearning process sometimes, depending on which generation, you were sort of programmed in.
You're absolutely right. I could hear my mother saying that, and I could hear myself saying that at other times. But I also, and this is just kind of a funny aside, there were many years that I sold Avon. And one of the things I loved about Avon is that they had clothes and jewelry, so costume jewelry and clothes that were very affordable and looked great. And I will never forget this time I had landed in Seattle, and I'd gotten my rental car and I'm going through checking out at Avis, so I'm going through the last thing where you hand them your papers and your driver's license. And the gal said, and I was wearing this brown dress with this, fake turquoise jewelry. And I loved it. I still have them. I wear them all the time. And
Oh,
the gal
turquoise,
goes,
yeah.
she goes, your outfit is beautiful. I wish one day I could afford turquoise jewelry like that. And I looked at her and I said, well, thank you very much. And guess what? You can. This is all from the Avon catalog. And she goes, what? I go, I know, the whole necklace jewelry thing, the whole outfit cost me maybe $50. She's like, I'm going to order some. And I remember being really empowered by that too, because I was taking the compliment, but I was also
Helping
engaging.
her, right.
Yeah, I wasn't even trying to sell to her. I just loved the fact that I could say to her, you can look exactly like this. Don't be fooled. Not everybody's wearing real stuff.
Right.
It was great.
But you weren't thinking, oh my goodness, she's going to think I'm a fraud, or she's going to think I'm a phony.
Probably.
You were not thinking those things, is what I'm
Well,
saying. I'm
yeah,
giving
that's true.
you credit. I am
Oh,
giving you
I see.
credit
Yeah, I
for
didn't want
not having this imposter syndrome language going around and around.
Yeah, and I didn't want I didn't want to give off the wrong impression that I was wearing all real stuff. I didn't want to go, "Oh, yes, I know it's so expensive." It was really important to me that it was the reality of that. In fact, I have a couple of dresses that I have that I got at flea markets. And I love them because they're very retro. And so when everybody, compliments me on them, which they always do, I'm like, I spent the $30 on this. Very proud of my fiscal responsibility.
We should be proud.
Barbara, one of the things that I know we've talked about a lot is, and you alluded to this earlier, is when the universe tells you what you're known for and what you're doing, then it's your job to show up and then do that and live that authentically. And I know as you really embraced, you love working with legal practices. I know you do. But it was interesting as you've shared your story with me over the last year or so about the moment where you realize everybody's coming to me and asking me, how do I stand out? How do I fire that inner critic? How do I, get that seat at the table? How do I embrace that? When you finally said, okay, I can have parallel tracks. I can have this one working with law firms that I, have a great reputation with and love, but I can also do this. When you finally embraced the fact that you can operate this way, what did it mean for you and your self-confidence?
What a fabulous question.
I know.
No,
I'm
it's a
so
really
I'm so
wonderful
deep.
question. Well, um, actually, this is one of the things that I give COVID credit for.
Mhm.
As you know, we share a membership at the Pyramid Club, and the many groups that we are part of have now gone onto Zoom. And as these groups decided to meet more and more often, everybody's theme was, I'm so scared of the future. Things are so uncertain. And
Mhm.
people started to talk about, like, I can't invest in something that's going to take 2 years. I can't invest in something that's going to take 6 months. I just want to get rid of X, Y, and Z so I can move forward. And
Yes.
as I did focus groups and talked to other women, clients, previous clients, colleagues, everybody said to me, the way I am buying services right now is in chunks, in spurts, in increments. I want to know that, I have identified this as an issue. I want to know that in 6 or 8 weeks, I can solve this issue and I can move forward. When another issue arises that's appropriate for that particular, resource, I will come back. But knowing that people wanted to learn something and to have a defined outcome, a defined dollar amount, a defined vision of what something was going to look like at the end, could bring them a certainty that took away the stress and gave them permission to move forward, became like the thing of the moment. And that
Mhm.
was really the light bulb to answer your question. This is the moment for this. And men too are coming forward now and saying, this isn't a woman's issue anymore. Let me tell
Right.
you how scared I am. What
Yeah.
if I can't provide for my family? What if I lose my job? What if my competition overtakes me because I didn't move fast enough? What if? And so this is the moment for this, to give people some certainty.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. What are your takes on, leading with love and really having us embrace this as individuals, as companies, and as economies, global communities?
If we don't lead with love of ourselves, we can't really impart love to others. And I know it sounds very Oprah-esque, but it really is true that if we haven't fed ourselves, if we feel cheated out of something, if we feel ignored, if we feel undervalued, if we don't feel recognized for the things that we know are really special about us, because everybody has
Mhm.
things about themselves that are special, and you know what they are. It's like Dorothy and her red shoes. Just click your heels, guys. Just click your heels with those little red shoes. You know how to get back to Kansas. You don't need anyone to show you.
I think you're so right, Barbara. When we take care of ourselves first, when we try and deal with ourselves from a point of love, we really we've got more. I don't want to say armor because armor means it's like we're protecting ourselves, but it's like you've got more power, more energy behind you. Because when you're taking care of yourself, you do have more defenses against the negatives or the negative thoughts or negative possibilities. And I think that, to your point, when we treat ourselves with kindness, we're probably going to be a little bit more likely to treat others with kindness as well.
If you love yourself first, And if you lead with that, and it doesn't mean you need to talk about it a lot, it doesn't mean you need to do anything specific. It means that you're going to show up differently. You're going to be different inside. You're going to use different kind of language. You're going to speak to people differently. You're going to have a different kind of smile on your face. You're going to inspire them to smile. And everything around you will just sort of exponentially be better.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I hadn't really thought about that. Most people can really recognize that we made some really radical shifts because first, when everybody was at home and nobody could see each other except for through the screen, we were craving attention and we were asking things like, how are you doing? How are you holding up? Are you doing okay? So we were asking better questions that weren't leading with business. But then what happened in a lot of cases is that our business discussions became much more, not just blended more personal and professional, but they really became questions. Like we slowed down long enough, if your calendar wasn't completely packed, if you had a networking call, instead of jumping right into, let me tell you about my business, it was really about, well, tell me about your business. We listen better. We ask better questions. And through this, I think that, as we go out, I don't know how many people on my show have said the same things that I have that, yes, there's a lot of sucky parts to it. And I'm not discounting anybody that lost family or have had, real bad repercussions from this. But for a lot of people, there's also this sense of, wow, I have gained. I might have lost a lot too, but I've gained things that I want to take forward. And so therefore, it's, hey, I'm just going to continue operating in a way that I'm going to communicate with people. And that can only continue to raise us all up.
I heard myself say in a Zoom call the other day that, the last disruption was really upsetting because it was such a paradigm shift. The disruption that gave birth to Airbnb and Lyft and Uber. And all you needed was a laptop, a chai latte, and you were all of a sudden a hotel that didn't have any beds and a transportation service that didn't have any cars.
Yeah.
And everything, the Internet of Things and everything migrated online. If we hadn't gone through that, we wouldn't have been prepared for this.
True.
So this is in some way preparing us for the next thing. We don't know what that is, but I think if we can have some confidence that it is serving a purpose, that also takes a lot of the stress away.
And now I want a chai tea latte.
I know, me too.
Barbara, I think it's fascinating. I love your perspective, and I absolutely agree. Goodness, Barbara, we could talk for hours and hours always, and I think we have at times. But I know we'll have all of your contact information on our show notes, but just in case somebody wants to look you up right now because they're like, I need this woman, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Please go to my website, bskstrategies.com, bskstrategies.com.
Excellent. Well, we will have all that linked in as well. So before we go, do you have any last words of wisdom or pearls of advice for my listeners and viewers?
I do. And here are three. One is, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you are right. The second is, as we've said before, give your inner critic a name to distance her from you, get her out of the driver's seat into the passenger seat. And the third is, if you don't like the negative self-talk that you are hearing, you can change the channel.
Excellent. Barbara, as always, you are very wise and motivate me as well. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Shock Your Potential podcast. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and like us today.